Google doesn't want you to get answers. They want you to search, dig through links, and see their ads. Their biggest nightmare was people getting answers instantly, because if that would happen, their entire business model would break. But despite everything they did to prevent it, that nightmare became reality. If you want to understand how the most successful company in the history of the internet found itself in a panic, you first have to look at the sheer scale of the system they built. Every time you type a question into that familiar white search bar, you are setting off a chain reaction across a global network that never sleeps. It's an engine so finely tuned that it generates roughly $15,000 in revenue every single second. For over 20 years, this has been the undisputed law of the land. You ask a question, Google gives you a list of 10 blue links, and advertisers pay for the privilege of being at the top of that list. It's a perfect cycle. It's the invisible infrastructure of the modern world, but there's a problem with being that successful. When you own the world's most profitable middleman business, the last thing you want to do is give people the answer they're looking for immediately. Because if a user gets exactly what they need on the very first page, they don't click. And if they don't click, that $15,000 a second clock stops ticking. The strange reality is that Google didn't lose the race to invent artificial intelligence. In fact, they effectively wrote the blueprint for it. Back in 2017, their own researchers published the paper that made tools like ChatGPT possible. They had the tech, they had the data, and they had the smartest engineers on the planet. But they also had a $2 trillion empire to safeguard. While Google was focused on protecting its profit margins, a smaller, aggressive startup with little to lose called OpenAI released ChatGPT. The launch of ChatGPT wasn't just a new product. It was a code red moment that forced Google's founders out of retirement. It revealed a paradox. The company who invented the future was now the one person in the room who couldn't afford to live in it. To understand why Google hesitated, you have to look at the moment they actually won the race. In 2017, 8 Google scientists published a paper with a deceptively simple title, "Attention is all you need." This document introduced the transformer, the technology that acts as the brain for almost every major AI today. Before the transformer, AI processed language like someone reading through a narrow straw, one word at a time, often forgetting the beginning of a sentence by the time it reached the end. The transformer changed all that. It acted like a high-speed camera, capturing the entire page at once and understanding how words far apart still related to each other. Google had invented the fire, but they quickly realized that this fire was hot enough to burn down their entire business. Google's dilemma stemmed from its dominance in search, a product that generates over $200 billion in annual revenue. That model relies on those 10 blue links. When you search for a flight or a medical symptom, Google shows you a list of websites and advertisers pay to be at the top. A conversational AI, however, provides a direct answer. If a chatbot tells you exactly how to fix a leaky faucet, you have no reason to click on an ad for a plumbing blog or a hardware store. This zero-click behavior was a direct threat to the company's financial lifeline. Beyond that, the math simply didn't add up. The cost of generating a single AI answer is estimated to be 10 times higher than a traditional keyword search. For Google, releasing a chatbot meant they would be paying more to earn less, and at the same time, detouring the internet traffic that kept their stock price at record highs. While Google stayed cautious, its internal culture began to split. The company's elite research wing, DeepMind, was operating like a scientific sanctuary. Under CEO Demis Hassabis, their mission was to solve intelligence to solve everything else. They were focused on Nobel Prize level milestones, like AlphaFold, which predicts the 3D shapes of proteins, a breakthrough that's revolutionizing medicine but doesn't exactly keep users from switching to a rival search engine. Meanwhile, at OpenAI, the philosophy was very different. They weren't waiting for scientific perfection. They were focused on commercial blitzkrieg. They took Google's own transformer and began releasing it to the public in stages. This created a knowledge outflow that Google couldn't stop. By 2025, every single one of the 8 original authors of the Attention is All You Need paper had left Google to start or join competitors like OpenAI and Anthropic. Google had authored the future, but their own builders were leaving to build it for someone else. While Google was busy protecting its ad revenue, the way we actually use the internet began to shift under their feet. Tools like ChatGPT began to change what people expected. Instead of wanting a list of websites and finding the answers themselves, people now want the answer handed to them directly. This has turned search into a destination. The difference is like comparing the yellow pages to an expert tutor. Google is still the best place to find a local plumber or a quick fact like when does the sun set, but ChatGPT and Claude have become the go-to places for deep work, explaining complicated topics, comparing products, or creative writing. By late 2025, ChatGPT reached an estimated 810 million monthly users. While Google still handles more total searches, the way people use these tools is beginning to split. A Google session is often just a quick 6-minute in-and-out task, but the average session on ChatGPT lasts 8 to 13 minutes. For Google, this was a financial nightmare. If they decided not to provide AI in their answers, users would leave for ChatGPT. If Google did provide AI answers, they would not only have increased processing costs, but damage their own ad revenue by removing the need for the user to browse through sponsored links. Regardless of the option they chose, they still wound up losing. By 2023, the internal tension at Google reached a breaking point. The company realized that to survive, they had to merge their two rival AI powerhouses, the academic sanctuary of DeepMind and the product-focused Google Brain, into a single entity, Google DeepMind. It was a cultural reset designed to finally turn scientific breakthroughs into consumer products with the speed of a startup. The first priority was fixing the problem of processing power. Because providing an AI answer is more expensive than a traditional search, Google began to build its own custom AI chips. The result was the Ironwood chip, designed specifically to power the thinking models behind Gemini. These chips are specialized factory machines that use roughly half the power of previous generations, allowing Google to build its AI without energy costs evaporating its profits. With the hardware in place, Google then began the transformation of its core product, search itself. The legendary 10 blue links are now evolving into an interface where Gemini-powered AI overviews synthesize answers from across the web before you ever have to click. But even here, Google is playing a careful game. To keep its advertisers happy, the company is layering ads directly into these AI responses, ensuring that when you search for the best new phones, the answer includes a direct link to a site where you can buy one. However, the most ambitious move isn't just about finding information, it's about taking action. Google is introducing new systems like the Universal Commerce Protocol and the Agent Payments Protocol, technologies which allow Gemini to talk directly to retailers like Walmart or Shopify. Instead of sending you to a website to buy shoes, the AI can now handle the inventory checks and even the payment directly within the chat. Google is betting that by becoming the personal shopper of the internet, they can capture a fee for every transaction and replace the clicks they lost with a newer, even more powerful grip on the global economy. As we move through 2026, we are seeing Google transition from a simple middleman that shows you a list of links to an expert tutor that hands you the answer directly. But this is a survival tactic. Google has decided to lower its own search traffic to prevent competitors like Claude or ChatGPT from taking it entirely. But this transition is the most expensive gamble in corporate history. In 2026 alone, Google is planning to spend $185 billion on the data centers and custom chips they need to power this new reality. That is more than the GDP of many entire countries, and it is nearly double what they spent just a year prior. The ultimate goal is to transform Google from a search engine into a personal agent. With features like personal intelligence, Gemini can now access your Gmail and photos to understand your specific plans and preferences. It's no longer just about matching words. It's about knowing you need a specific coat for your flight next Tuesday because it saw your confirmation email. By embedding this AI into billions of devices through Android and Workspace, Google is betting that most users will simply choose the assistant that is already there rather than the one they have to seek out. Google's journey from scientific research to the messy, real-world deployment of Gemini represents a company finally deciding that the risk of being wrong is smaller than the risk of being irrelevant. Inventing the future was the easy part for Google. Letting go of the past to actually live in that future is the real challenge. But one thing is clear: the era of the 10 blue links is over, and the era of the AI agent has begun.